Hey guys, it's official. We are finally launching the Beyond the Walls with Faryl podcast, episode 1. This project is a long time coming, and I want to personally welcome all of you to the channel. Our first guest is the one and the only Mr. John Bramblitt, an exceptional artist from Texas who happens to also be blind. I've had the pleasure of working with John on 3 exhibitions now, and he's just an all-around amazing person. Super talented, big heart, really funny, and has an inspiring story to share that I know will touch all of your hearts in a special way. Our conversation today taps into all sorts of things, including his upbringing, what was the last thing he saw before losing his sight, the challenges he faced after going blind and hitting rock bottom, to then finding hope and joy again through the transformative power of art. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this conversation, and I would really appreciate your support by hitting that like and subscribe buttons for more content. This way you don't miss future episodes, and it really helps out the channel too. So, without further ado, I'd like to officially welcome our very first guest to the podcast, the extraordinary artist and my friend, Mr. John Bramblitt. John, hi.
Well, hello.
Welcome to the Beyond the Walls with Faryl podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. You're our first artist interview, and I'm really looking forward to having this time with you.
Oh, Faryl, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that. For having us, I should say.
Yeah, do you want to introduce your little friend?
Oh, yeah. This is Zook. Hey, Zook. You want to come up? Oh, he's my boy. So this is Zook. He's my guide dog. He's from Vision Guide Dogs, and he doesn't look like it, but he's a genius. Mm-hmm. He's not acting like a genius right now, just laying on the floor, but he is amazing. He gets me everywhere I want to go.
He's beautiful.
Thank you. I don't know why I say thank you. I didn't make him look cute, but
he's yours. He's yours. So
you can lay back down if you want, buddy. You want to take a nap? He's so good.
He's very loyal. Well, I thought a good way to start this conversation is to really to talk about your book just for a second. I'm holding it in my hand. It's called Shouting in the Dark. Mm-hmm. I loved reading this. I know it's about 10 years old. I think it came out about 10.
Something like that. I'm bad with time, but that sounds right.
Yeah, and knowing you and reading this book was so inspiring because I knew, obviously I know your story, but you get really detailed in here and you share your life, and I knew there was light at the end of the tunnel, and so it was such a beautiful read. I highly recommend it. And I just wanted to ask, what was it like for you to put your story down on paper? Was it a gratifying experience? Was it a fun experience?
Thank you so much for saying such nice things about it. I appreciate that so much. And I know whenever I was losing my eyesight, and I've had epilepsy my entire life and different health problems, but I know like whenever I lost my eyesight, you feel very alone. Like you feel just very like out there, like no one really understands. And hearing other people's stories, whether it was about vision loss, any kind of challenge that somebody was going through, something that was bigger than they were, and hearing those stories, it made me feel less alone. And I always thought that, at some point I wanted to contribute, like I wanted to be a part of the dialogue. And because I wanted to write something, because even if one person read it and it helped them, and that was the whole reason for the book, really, was just thinking that maybe even one person out there would read it and it would help them. And because I know like hearing from other people on my entire life has just been huge. Like I just have this thing in my life where it seems like really good people and art come together and they help me get through bad times.
Yes. Well, it's a fantastic read, and again, I highly recommend it, and I am so glad you wrote it.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you wrote it. And I want to start very similar to how the book starts. We're not going to go through the whole book, but I like how it kicked off, which talked about your childhood. You described it as a very happy, normal existence. You have a great relationship with your family. Your relatives lived nearby. You're from Dallas. And then at age 4, you were diagnosed with congenital kidney disease. what was that like, and how did that change everything for you?
I was really fortunate when I was growing up because I think I had my first major seizure when I was like 2, and then they got worse from there. And then with the kidney disease, and I had all this trouble with that, just in and out of hospitals, and then ended up having a kidney removed when I was 7. But for me, like, I guess growing up with all that, I never thought it was any different. And my parents, they never treated me any differently. Like I no matter what was going on, everything was very positive. It was always, if there was like a bad day, which there was a lot of bad days, I would draw a lot. Like I think I could draw before I could walk, and I went through crayons and pencils like you wouldn't believe, and paper, and I would fill up every little piece of paper, and art was my kind of way of dealing with that, I think. But also having a family that never treated me any differently, like for any of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think supportive parents is just everything. And I like that they never made you feel less than, or things were different, and you grew up with that feeling of completeness.
Yeah.
You would contribute, I think, to your mom and your dad.
Yeah, and I was really jealous of my friends that had bad dads and stuff, that they had a lot of angst and stuff. They had all this that you hear about comedians, and they're like, oh, my dad was terrible, and like my dad was great. He was really sweet.
I love that.
And my mom was a sweetheart, and they had to deal through so much through my childhood. I still call them every day because I feel like I got to pay them back a little bit for everything I put them through in my childhood. But
they must be so proud of you.
I hope so. I hope they are.
I've never met them, and I'm sure they're so proud of you.
Sure. Thank you.
For sure. I thought it was really interesting that when you were growing up and you were going through some of these health challenges, that you would often go to your room and lay in the dark and play movies, but not to necessarily watch with your eyes. You played them and laid on your bed and imagined them through your mind. And when I read that in your book, I highlighted it because I thought, oh my God, it was only a few sentences. It wasn't like a big focus point in your book, but I thought, oh my gosh, that really helped set the stage almost for what was ahead.
That's me. To be honest, I'm glad you picked up on that. I'd forgotten about that, even though I wrote it in the book.
You talked about the movie.
I know. Yes. I saw that in the hospital, which was crazy because I think I was having a surgery or something, and where we would watch scary movies. I don't know, because at least, if you're feeling bad, a scary movie is nice because at least you're doing better than they are, in the movie. But I had a tape recorder, so I would tape movies as I would listen to them. I'm 54 now, so we didn't have video recorders and stuff then, and then I would play them back later. But I was always very visual, so when I would hear the movie, I'd see the whole movie in my mind and just play it back, and it was the same as actually seeing it, which was, I never really thought about that. Like,
it felt like training.
It does, doesn't it? I'd never put that together. That's
interesting.
Thank you, Faryl.
Oh yeah,
that's interesting. I have to rethink everything now.
Yeah. I think you were on a path, and that, to me, that really struck me. I also, in reading the book, during the years where you were diagnosed with epilepsy and then later Lyme disease, I mean, you had your health challenges, and the one thing that you really turned to, and you mentioned it just a minute ago, was drawing, and that was your therapy. You weren't painting, you were just drawing, and you didn't even care about the end result, or you just needed to get that was your energy on paper to get through those difficult times. And I wanted to just hear a little bit more about that. I think that's really interesting. Art is brilliant. So I've been doing it a long time now, so I like to think that I'm better now than when I started. But the great thing about art is that you get the same benefit from it the very first day that you start trying to draw something. Your mind is off of all your problems. You're not thinking about things you've lost or things that are coming up. Maybe, now, like, I'm an adult, you have bills to pay, but when you're a kid, maybe a test coming up or something that you want to do, and you're not sure if your health is going to allow you to be able to go do that. And so when you're drawing, you're not thinking about any of that. It's a little vacation. And what's wonderful is that you get that from the very first day that you start. So if you're making a stick figure,
you're just as absorbed than if you're 40 years later and you're trying this very complex art technique that you've been working on for months and you think you got it. Doesn't matter. You're getting the same sort of healing, the same sort of well-being from it. And I love that. And it's incredible, and it's something that you can just carry around with you. And then even you can even take it with your appreciation of art, taking in other people's art, and it takes you out of yourself. And we do that with music, and of course art and paintings, all that. But it was always like a little tool I had in my back pocket when things were bad, because I could always take it to, if I was in a hospital, I'd go in the hospital for like 2 weeks, 4 weeks at a time, and go out for a while and then go back in, and it was like,
that was your constant.
Yeah, you always had that. And you'd fill up paper. When the paper was full on both sides, you couldn't squeeze any more in. You'd put it in a stack, and when the stack got too high, you would throw the stack away because it was worthless, and like it didn't do any good for you.
And if I recall correctly, you had the kind of memory that you could see something and totally memorize it and put it down on paper.
Just funny because I couldn't remember anything else. That's my wife. But anything like that, for some reason in my brain, I've got a weird brain where I don't forget things like that. And even now, like filling people's faces and stuff, like that took a lot of time. But it's a way that I understand things. And I know, like when I write, I love to write, but I have to draw it out first to kind of figure it out in my brain. And then once I get the pictures kind of laid out, then I can start to move on to other type of reasoning, I guess.
So losing your ability to draw when your sight was going away, that must have been very profound. What was that experience like for you, to know that drawing, the one thing that was constant for you, was about to change?
Man, yeah, even it's been a while now, but even when I think about it, it makes my mouth go a little dry, because I was having a lot of seizures, so we weren't really thinking about it being a visual problem. I would have a massive seizure and my vision would get blurry, and it wasn't clearing up all the way, but we weren't thinking about it damaging the optic nerves or anything like that. My neurologists were just thinking like, oh, we need to get the seizures under control and then everything will be fine. So I wasn't really thinking about the vision. And then in 2001, I started having some massive seizures, and then they measured my vision, and it was like 20/400, which is like twice over the legal limit for legal blindness. And the eye doctor was looking at it, and she was looking at everything, and she said, and I really expected her to say, oh, we got a pill or something. I don't know, there's a patch you can put, you can wear it twice a week. But she set me down. She said, you're going to lose the rest of your sight. And, and there's nothing we can do about it. We need you to start learning cane travel while you still have some sight left. And it was like I was just punched in the stomach. Like that was the last thing I thought that she would say, because we're all friendly. Everything's like, oh, everything's cool. And then it was just that, and it was like, whoa. And at first, my first thought wasn't about the art, but it was everything. Like my life was just over. Like everything was just gone. And then the second thought was art, because I thought, oh, now I got to deal with this. And so I started trying to adapt in different ways, but the idea that you could make art without vision wasn't even a... Right. It wasn't. Yeah, no, I mean, in my university, like nobody had the idea of doing that. Like it wasn't even a thought. And
well, speaking of artists who would paint with a loss of vision, is Monet. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think about him during this time and use him as a source of inspiration?
I didn't then. Mm-hmm. I didn't. Later on, I did. Mm-hmm. But then, though, I was just so angry and depressed that I was just running around in circles. I didn't. But later on, he certainly was, and the way that he dealt with it, and there's some funny stories about him losing. But I don't know if you want to hear anything about that. But he was barred from museums, I should say, like because he started thinking about colors in different ways. So he would go back into museums that were already hanging his artwork, and he would start to correct the paintings because he would think about color. And they were like, Claude, no, no, you can't do that, man. So they started not letting him in. And isn't that weird? But his vision loss started making him think about art in a different way. Mm-hmm. And he thought, oh, this painting really needs to be different.
So interesting.
And they wouldn't let him.
Yeah, and he didn't give up either. That was an example of someone that was losing his eyes and wanted to get back to the old paintings and correct them with his new sense of
and then it's one thing artists have in common, I think, is that obsessiveness. Just get really obsessive and want to work.
I think it was really beautiful to hear you talk about the last thing you remember when you could see. And I was wondering if you could share that story with us.
Oh yeah, I am. I'm a big nerd. So I read all the books I can about art and stuff. But one of the classes I was taking at university, whenever I was losing my eyesight, was an astronomy class, and we were able to actually see the planets, and I could see Saturn through a telescope. And to me, it was so incredible because you can look at pictures online or in a book of a planet, but it's just a picture there. But you're actually seeing it shimmering. It's out there. It's existing in that moment that you're looking at it, and it blew me away. Just this incredible thing out there, and then seeing the craters on the moon and all these different things, but it just made me feel a connection to something that was so much bigger than myself and something that's just ancient. And that was one of the last things that I saw clearly, because really quickly after that, the vision started going downhill and started not being able to recognize faces. And it was just, but I love that. If one of the last things you can see is a giant planet, then that's a good top 10, I would say.
That's a blessing.
Yes,
and is it very vivid in your mind to today?
Yes. I'm cursed with that brain that remembers images, so I remember it very, very well.
Oh my gosh.
Which really helps, because all the paintings that I used to study, when I was sighted, I didn't think I would be a good painter, so I drew, and I took all kinds of classes on drawing, for drafting, for any kind of drawing. But I didn't think I'd be a good painter, but I was an armchair quarterback sort of for painting. So I would research all these painters, how they set up their studios, what kind of palettes they use, what colors they wouldn't use. But I didn't think I would be a good painter, so I didn't give it a try. But I remember their paintings so vividly. And then later, after losing the eyes, I was actually able to touch and feel some Monets and Picassos and Van Goghs, and which was nice. But that's later on.
How did you pull that off?
Oh. Well, from collectors, and I work with museums. So I work with museums all around the country, showing and talking. I do a lot of talks, and we'll work to help them become more inclusive. And every once in a while, they'll let me get hands on with their stuff. And if they own it, then if it's reserved, then I'm like. Although every once in a while, I shouldn't say this, but a guard will go like, "Yeah, go ahead, it's okay. You can go ahead and touch it." So
We won't tell them.
yeah, it's like, well, you're not gonna hurt it. It's fine.
Wow. So you're telling me you have actually touched like a Picasso or a Monet.
Oh yeah, and
you have felt that. What was that experience like for you?
It was incredible, and especially like
fast forwarding, but
oh yeah, sorry, fast forwarding.
No, it's okay.
But
I'm so curious.
It taught me so much about how to paint. Like especially with the Van Gogh. I'm from Texas, so we say Van Gogh, but you could feel the strokes as he did it. So. Like the long, languid sort of strokes, where you could put yourself in the headspace, because you can't be in an agitated sort of mindset and make these long, curving sort of strokes. There's other areas where there's stippling, where you can feel where the brush would have to go in and out, so you know exactly how he's holding his hand. You know how he was kind of feeling, because you know how the energy level you have to be able to do that. And you get it, and you can even feel some of the bristles, like from the brushes, from it. So you get this moment in time that is just captured, that it just makes it so much more real. And you understand how his fingers were working around the brush as he moved it around, and then trying to bring that into your own artwork.
Well, I was going to say, after an experience like that, did you just rush back to your studio? And
oh man, yeah. Oh my goodness.
And mimic that a little bit and bring that into your own pieces?
100%. Like trying to.
Yeah.
And contemporary artists too, because most contemporary artists will let me feel their artwork if there's something to feel, and learn so much. It's incredible. Like there's so much information there that they leave on the canvas, and it's just, I don't know. I'm like I say, I'm a huge nerd, but I love it. I can just touch paintings for hours and hours and hours.
That's so cool. Let's talk about Technicolor. Did I say that right?
Oh yeah, and synesthesia, like we're like seeing like color with sound.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, in the book, I want to say you defined it as like technicolor.
Yeah, so it makes like a
introduction. So as you were
Yes.
losing your sight, you were realizing that you were seeing things, or when you would hear things, you would see it differently in your mind versus when you had your sight.
Yeah.
Those visions weren't necessarily there.
Yeah, and it's yeah, it would make like a technicolor, like it would burst into color, like just like if you think.
Example.
Well, so whenever I hear music, it's like the air is colored. It's just everything has, and I thought everybody saw like sound that way. It's just part of sound, like a C note's going to look this way, it's going to be a little more yellowy, and then an F note, which is purple, obviously. I thought everybody, it's just, if for different people, it could be different colors that have that, but it's just a cross wiring in the brain of, of other senses being kind of tripped whenever, but it was wonderful though, because when the eyesight went, I that's where I was getting my color from. And it's so whenever I paint, I always have music, so I always have sound. I'm a muralist. Like 2017, I became like the world's first blind muralist.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I can't paint without sound out there. So I've been on a mural, like on a wall, and then we're 50 feet up, and the speakers die, and we're like, well, we're done. We're done for the day.
What are you listening? Is it always the same?
No.
Or are you?
No, it's
how
everything.
Do you pick your music when you're painting?
Oh man, it's everything. It depends on the mood of the painting or that part that you're painting on, and and the colors that you want for it. So I try to find music that'll match that tone and that color. So sometimes it'll seem like very different kinds of music, but the feeling is the same, or the colors that are coming out is the same. And I painted a 737 for Delta for the Rock in Rio concert. And a big part of that was because of sound. They just wanted an artist that would take sound, and they would use that sound to be able to paint. So they gave me like Beyonce, Justin Timberlake, Aerosmith, like all these different bands that were going to be playing the concert. So I was working with all their music, and then they said you can paint whatever you want, just whatever you hear, and which is the best thing ever to tell an artist, because that's the easiest thing. If you paint whatever you want, and there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun because it was just all sound. It was just sound that you could put into color. And
so I'm just curious, like a Beyonce song would be
color? It depends on the song, and I can't remember what she was playing then on there. It's funny because I painted so much since then, and it's just so, but it's a riot of color. But it does. There was a lot of, I can't remember the song, but I remember a lot of pinks and purples, and there was oranges, but I can't remember the name of the song. But if I heard it, I would know it. But
those colors were coming through.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then working that in with some of the other bands that were playing there, and having their colors come through. And so that was a lot of fun, because it was just like freedom to take this weird thing, of hearing, seeing color with sound, and just running with it. So I thought, yes, please.
Just going back just a little bit, because I think this is a really important moment in your life, where I'm just gonna say the word, and I'm gonna let you take it from there.
Oh, okay, all right.
Buddha.
Oh man, well, whenever I lost my eyesight and I was trying to learn how to draw again, I legitimately thought I was crazy. Like I thought, this is nuts, because there weren't really blind artists around. There was a guy in Turkey. We didn't know each other at the time, but there wasn't anybody that was visually impaired that was trying to paint that I knew of. And so I was feeling things that there was around my house that I knew. Like I had a baseball from my grandfather, and all these cuts, but I knew it, by heart. So I could touch the seam, and I could visualize it, and I could see it. There was a table that my grandmother had that I could feel all the little scratches in it, and I could hold the image in my head while I felt it. And another thing was this little wooden statue of a Buddha, which I knew in my brain like so well, but I could go through and start matching up the images in my mind to what I was touching. So just teaching kind of my fingers how to do the work of your eyes. And I was learning that with the cane. Like later, like a guide dog like Zook here, but with the cane, you're learning how to see through your eyes too, through touch, and how to navigate a room, without running into the walls, how to use a cane to get down a sidewalk without running into a tree, or and So I started thinking, I thought, well, my goodness, if we have these techniques that let a blind person be able to cross a city and not get hit by a car and not knock over too many people, I knock over a few with a cane every time I travel, but that's okay. Nobody seems to mind too much. Then I started thinking, well, if you can do that, if you can cross the city, then maybe you can cross something much smaller, like a piece of paper, and instead of you use your sense of touch to trail along the paper to be able to use lines. But I had a wooden Buddha in my house that I knew exactly what it looked like. I knew every little curve, every little part of it. And I was touching the Buddha, and in my mind, I could visualize every little part, like the eyes, the nose, the mouth, exactly what the shape was of it, the curves around his head, just all of it had the images in my mind. And I thought, well, if I use these cane techniques and art techniques that I knew, then maybe I can draw it. Maybe I can make some lines, and maybe I couldn't. And I really thought like I was out of my mind. Like I thought I was just crazy, because the idea of a visually impaired person doing that, never heard of that. And nobody at my school ever heard of that. It was just like, I thought, well, this is it. I'm nuts. So I didn't really tell people because I thought I was crazy. But I searched around. I found, I tried glues. I tried different things to draw with. And I found this paint that was really thick. So I started to put down the first lines of this Buddha, and it was constantly wrong. Like I would put a line down, and I had a huge stack of paper, and I remember I started in the evening one night, and I would draw a little bit, and then it would just go awry, and I'd crumple it up, and I would throw it aside, then I would start again. And then I would start again, and I would start again. And it had paint all over my hands, paint all over me. I tried to draw that thing all night long until in the morning, I had like a nest of white paper around me. But I had finally drawn a sketch of that Buddha with raised lines that you could touch and feel. And I'll be honest, it was a terrible drawing. It was an awful drawing.
I doubt it.
Oh no, it was really, really bad. But it was a drawing though. It was a sketch. So it was proof that I could draw again. It was just like the light bulb went off in my brain. It was the first bright moment that I had in a year. I had this year of just depression and anger, of just thinking I was less than anything, knowing that I couldn't really affect anything in life. Just that everything was just over. Like I just knew it was over. And then suddenly I had this, and I could actually do something a little bit, because I knew in art, if you can do something just a little, you can keep adding to it. You can change it. So that morning, I had my new cane that I was learning how to get around, and it had been about a year, and I went to the art store, and so
this was my next question, which is amazing. So the very next day is when you left the house and you were determined to go to an art store. You walked in as someone who was blind and walked out with a new sense of vision.
It's a very well way to ask the question. Thank you. That was beautiful. But I was so, oh my goodness, I didn't sleep that night because I was trying to draw, and I was so excited. And there's a bookstore called Vortman's right next to the university, and it was a place I knew how to get to, because one side was for the university stuff, the other side was art. I'd never been to the other side, with the art side, but I knew it existed. You take a right instead of a left, and so I went there, and then I had my brand new shiny cane and went to the right, and I just stood there because I didn't know where to go. I wasn't that great of a traveler yet. And I just stood there, and I thought, well, eventually someone's going to come by and, ask. And I was so fortunate. This gentleman named Daniel came by, and I said, hey, I'm blind. I used to draw. I'm doing everything by touch now. I want to draw again. So I have to do it by touch. And anybody else other than Daniel would have been like, hey, why don't you do something else? Like, I've got a break in 10 minutes or something, move along, kid. But this guy was like, cool, let's open up all the paint. So we went in and he just started opening everything up. We started feeling like the oil paints, the temper.
Because he was telling you that the difference between like an oil paint versus an acrylic, and that with your hands you might be able to determine a color.
Exactly right. Yeah, and he was like, well, so we found oils, and then like the white, the titanium white of one brand felt very different than the oil of another brand. I mean the black. I'm sorry, the black felt kind of like oil. So those two felt different. I thought, oh my goodness, like this feels like really thick, creamy toothpaste. This is kind of slimy. Like I can tell the difference between that. I can tell the difference between these two colors. And then we found one other color a cadmium red. And so I took those 3 home and just started getting really, really messy with it. But feeling like, and I would sweat bullets. Like I would mix a little of the white with a little of the black. You're like, ooh, what's that feel like? Okay, I'll mix a little more. What does that feel like? And I had a little white dog. Her name was Anne. And I didn't realize I'd never painted with oil paints. I didn't realize how hard it was to get those off your hands. So I went and washed my hands and washed them, I thought, really, really well, because I washed them forever. I thought, surely by now I got the paint off these things. And then Anne would come over like, oh, you're so cute. And I'd love Anne. And my friends came over and they're like, what happened to Anne? Holy crap.
Just covered in
Yeah, she was just like, oh, man.
white and black.
Yes. Yeah. And then she went on to be a very multicolored dog as the months rolled on, and I was trying different colors. But it was funny, I mean, because I was trying to draw like a square and then draw another square that's exactly half the size. And I would literally be just sweating like I'd been jogging down the street, because you're feeling the lines and trying to perceive it in your mind and trying to work out your fingertips to get the adept at it. And at that point, even Braille was hard for me. Like I would try reading Braille, and I felt like everything was a letter A. Everything was like, because I couldn't feel all the little dots. I thought maybe I had something wrong with me. But I would paint, 12, 14 hours a day, every day. And I'd go to school, when I had school those days, I would sleep, I would go to school. I still couldn't read or write again yet. I was still relearning how to do that. So I would get incompletes in my classes. So I didn't have any homework, which was a silver lining. But the rest of the time, like I would sleep like 4 hours, and the rest of the time was just trying to draw and paint and make sure that I got around my friends a little bit. Like I'd go to a coffee shop or something, and just for mental health. But other than that, I was trying to do this weird thing with painting, which I really kind of kept secret. Although my friends found out pretty quick, because multicolored dog and things. But it was a weird time. But thankfully for that little Buddha statue, he kind of kicked it off and made, and it's all been weird since.
It's been amazing, and it's like the Buddha gave you your life back a little bit, because you were able to start dreaming again and find color. And then and Daniel at the art store. I mean, what a divine moment.
Oh man!
Because he let you. He didn't pass you. He said, "How can I help?"
Oh man, I still see Daniel every once in a while,
really?
and his kids. I give them the biggest hugs.
Yeah.
I love Daniel so much.
That's incredible. And I know that I think one of the next paintings you tried to do was your self-portrait, and that was a very emotional, difficult challenge, but one that you wanted to see through.
Yeah, I called it 10 Eyes because I was really angry. And losing the eyesight, I was just so depressed and so angry. I didn't want to show it to people, so I don't know how much people knew just how devastated I was. I tried not to show it too much, especially to my family, because they were so supportive, but you don't want to drag people down, especially if you love them. But I was just seething, and I thought, well, instead of 2 eyes, I now have 10 eyes, because I'm using my eyesight to get around, to travel around rooms, to start drawing again. And so the nice thing about a self-portrait is that you always have the model is always available. Mm-hmm. So you can feel your own face. I was feeling my face like I did with the Buddha, with other things that I was trying to understand how to take that. Because I used to do a lot of portrait work and trying to pare that down to what I was doing then. And it's a very simplistic drawing of me holding up my fingers. It was wonderful in a way, because I was very angry, but I was painting for such long hours that I wasn't thinking about any of my problems. I wasn't thinking about all the stuff that had gone wrong. I was just thinking about the size 0 brush I was using, putting that little tiny bit of paint where it needed to go, and then going back and not losing track and going back, and then feeling it when it was dry, and it was just sweating bullets. But after I kind of finished that, and I worked on another Buddha painting, that I started to calm down. It was almost like this weight had lifted, and I started feeling, I thought I was getting sick, to be honest, because I was just felt so much anger, so much depression, that I thought I was coming down with something.
It's almost like you were detoxing.
Oh my gosh.
That's what comes to mind, because you're describing the sweat and the anger. You were kind of like getting it out of your system. All of
That's a good way to put it. That is.
Heaviness.
I felt hollow, like hope had left, and I didn't realize that hope actually had a physical presence in this world. but I just had this ache inside of me that I just carried with me. And then it started getting filled up, with the artwork, and, and I stopped feeling so bad. And I didn't realize it was doing that until there was like some moments where I wasn't thinking about it, or like, I would actually laugh a little bit. And then the way that I would be so obsessed with my painting and I wouldn't be thinking about anything else, I started being around friends and family, and I was taking that same fixation and being with them. So I was in the moment with them, and I wasn't just depressed and I wasn't just angry. I was actually enjoying the moments, and those moments started to add up, and would paint even more. Believe it or not, and
you were sharing a piece.
I did.
For the first time, I thought the story about your unveiling to your parents was really beautiful.
Oh man, that. Oh,
it was so
yeah.
beautiful.
I told my mom because they were going to come over to my apartment, and we would go to dinner every Friday. Like I always make sure to see them once a week. And my place had gotten to the point where you couldn't hide that I was painting, because there was just paint everywhere. Because paint apparently is really sticky, and so I knew they were coming over, and so I wanted to let them know, And I told Mom that I was, I'm painting now, and Mom, bless her heart, she's always so supportive. And she's like, "Oh, really?" But I could hear in her voice, like she was like, "Oh, crap!" I'm like, this is because she didn't want to let me down, And then and they came in and they saw the stuff that I've been working on. She's like, "Oh, thank God, they're good."
And they broke down in tears.
They did. They were so afraid that they were going to have to, I don't know, like hurt my feelings or something. And then, but they could see the vision. That it's one of the things about being blind is that people don't know what you know and what you understand. And I think they kind of saw a window that, hey, John's still in there, even though we talked all the time, and but it was like they could visually see that I was still in there, and
still there, and it was art that connected you back with your parents in a way that perhaps they thought was lost.
Yeah, isn't that something?
It's beautiful.
I love art.
I love art.
I don't know if you can tell.
I love art, and I just love how it provided you with a lifeline and a deeper insight into perception, into your own narrative. And I kind of pulled out this little paragraph that I want to read to you from your book, and just ask you to comment on it. You said, "With my new sense of calm came a new perception and understanding. Yes, I had lost my sight, but the true blindness was how I allowed myself to lose my place in the world. I had become blind to my sense of self and my self-worth." Such a profound realization. I highlighted it. I felt very connected to it. I think lots of people will, because we go through hard times, and it's easy to give up on yourself, when you're always there. But for some reason it's easier to give up on yourself than to love yourself during hard times. And you said, from this moment forward, your perspective of blindness evolved from viewing it as a deficit to embracing it as a calling. Really beautiful.
Thank you so much for saying you connected with that. That is the highest comment. That I appreciate that so much. That means so much to me. Whenever I lost my eyesight, I thought I was separated from everyone, and I thought it made me completely different and just less than anything, no hope, no worth at all. And I was really fortunate that I was going to the university, and they have a very strong disability accommodations. And there's lots of people there that have disabilities. And I started meeting people that had far worse situations than what I had. And then with the artwork, I started traveling and talking to nonprofits and groups, and met people that had incredible health problems, but they also had hope. And they had these plans for the future, and they were so happy. And I thought, well, my goodness, I have a fundamental problem with the way I'm seeing the world, and it wasn't the vision, it was the vision that was keeping me down. It was my viewpoint on everything. And,
right.
And I started realizing that everybody in their life has something that is bigger than they are. Like there's something that it's more than what you can handle by yourself. And it's okay to ask for some help, and getting that help, and knowing that means that you can help other people later. like you just were talking about my parents, like crying when they saw my artwork. It made me think of a workshop that I had done years later where I was working with a nonprofit, and it was like 500 children that were visually impaired and their families. And I was in the hallway, I was getting some water, and there was this mom and her 2 sisters were out there, and they were crying, just bawling. And I thought, oh no, what did I do now? So I went over there like, are you guys okay? And the mom's daughter, and their 2 aunts, they were just crying. But their daughter was in there drawing for the first time. And it was the first time that they actually saw her be able to do that. And when they saw her drawing, suddenly like the entire future for that little girl, suddenly they could foresee all these things. School, jobs, careers, family, all this stuff suddenly. And they had to leave the room because they just couldn't, and I thought, oh my goodness. It's just
making a difference.
Oh, well, art is just art. I love art. I don't know. I'll keep saying that.
I know you love art, and I love art, which is a perfect time to talk about your exhibit at the gallery called "The Wild and the Familiar." This is our 3rd show together, which is really exciting.
Thank you for having me back. By the way,
gosh,
here's the glutton for punishment.
I demand. Tell me what the inspiration was behind this particular series.
Well, a big inspiration was our chat, us talking together, and us just like talking about like, oh, what would be a really fun like series to work on, and what it would have, and it started giving me all kinds of ideas. And after we chatted, I started thinking about the animals that we grow up in, the animals that are here in Texas, and how they affect our lives and our urban landscapes, and just how all that goes together. And then started thinking about my life growing up and the different areas, the different places that, they just sort of color your life, as you're going through it. And so I wanted to do a series of a sort of an homage to, like an older cars, all this stuff like from the 90s and the 80s, and but also the animals though, and the way they just, because we think of it being like wildlife, but to them it's just life. It's just, we build all these streets and stuff. They're like, it's just where they live now, and it's. So I love that juxtaposition. Yeah. Because it's funny, it's humorous, it's silly, but it's also, I don't know, it's amazing sometimes.
And this is probably, I was going to ask you the creative process you took to create the series. It might be a good time to talk about haptic visualization and how a piece comes to be. Yes.
So whenever I paint, and haptic visualization, it just means like you're using your sense of touch to visualize. So and I use that whenever I'm understanding a subject. Like if I want to paint Zook, I'd feel his face, and I go like, okay, I see what you look like now. But then when I'm drawing, I can make lines that I can touch and feel. And when I first started, they had to be giant, thick lines. But now, my sense of touch has gotten to the point where I can count like the threads on jeans. Like it's gotten very, very good, I guess, for lack of a better word. Yeah. And so now when I draw, it can be a very thin line, and so but it has to be something I can touch and feel. So whenever I'm making a painting, it's almost like making a small sculpture, like a very, very, very thin sculpture, and then I can use different textures for colors. So I'll mix different additives, different mediums in with my paint, so that I can make white feel different than red feel different than blue.
And what kind of things do you pour into your paint?
For this series, I used all acrylics. I love acrylics. Right. And there's all these different additives, different mediums that you can get for acrylic paints. And then some of them I kind of make myself because I need them to be a little bit different. But like you can get additives so that'll make the paint so thick you can carve it with a knife or work like clay. Others that'll make them kind of slimy or thin or milky or whatever it is you want. Mm-hmm. And then there's one though that I started drawing with that I use for this series quite a bit, where I take a golden carbon black, which has a high flow medium mixed into it. Then I take a Liquitex high flow medium and I mix that into it. Then I take a Liquitex varnish and I mix that into it. And you end up with this paint where...
You're like a scientist.
Yeah, mad scientists in there. Yeah, we've definitely had some explosions in the lab where I'm like, oh, that wasn't supposed to go with that. But it makes this paint where it's almost like a rubber cement, but it dries instantly. But it leaves a little bit of a raised line. So
Perfect.
it was just like, and then if you don't like it, you can mix you can just put a little bit of a thin layer of other paint over it, real thin, and it goes away.
Wow.
So it's just,
Very cool.
I love that stuff. So it's all just touch. Sounds hard, but I do workshops where we blindfold people, and in 5 or 10 minutes, I can show somebody the basics.
So I'm almost certain that you didn't like touch a bear or a raccoon or an alligator, which are the animals featured in this exhibit. So how'd you nail that? I mean, they're just so proportionately perfect and right on.
Thank you. Yeah. Whenever I can, I do though. Like if I can touch a stuffed animal or a building or like whatever it is, I definitely do that because you get so much more information. Like from a person's face, like actually feeling the face, you get so much more. But what's wonderful, and this is, I'll make this a short story because, there's software that we use now. There's lots of different steps we did for the last 15 years of things that we used to use. Like I did a TV show in Holland where we had to plaster cast this model's face. She was really well known there, and I was going to complete the painting on stage. So we had to cast her face in plaster for me to fill it here. That's ancient. And then 3D printers, you could take a photo and then you could fill the face. So something we were working on with the Metropolitan Museum in New York and the Dallas Museum of Art was the software where you can take an iPad. So if somebody's visually impaired, they can go to the museum and hold up the iPad, and it'll make lines of the composition. So it's just basic lines, and then when you run your fingers across the screen, it'll vibrate. So if it's a thick line, it'll vibrate really, really kind of slow, and it'll make a lower noise. And then if it's a thinner line, it'll vibrate faster. It'll make like a me. It'll make sounds as well. So they started with that, and it was very basic. But then over the years, they've been getting better and better and better, and now they have like things that are combined with AI a little bit that'll make the lines even better, and you can zoom in, zoom out. So I have a massive screen that I can take a photo. And the cool thing is that this is the first time in history that visually impaired people are able to understand a photo. Wow. And it's not like TikTok or Instagram where somebody's like swiping through a minute, but it takes a long time to be able to fill it.
Of course.
And it sucks when you take an hour and you go like, oh no, this one sucks. Let's try the next one. I'm like, okay, next. And then, but it's incredible though that it's even there. And so it lets you be able to take a photo of a bear. And in my mind, I remember what a bear looks like. But then you can take a reference photo and start to feel it and go like, oh, okay, well his paw is like his nails are this distance from that, and at least it's proportionally, and then you can start. It gives you something to work from, and so it's great for certain things. It doesn't work for everything yet, but oh my goodness, it's incredible what's out there, and that's one of the things I do a lot. Like the show that we're doing, every time the artwork's out there, more people find out what's available for people with visual impairments. Most people who lose their eyesight are older, and they don't necessarily have access to the information of what's even out there. So hearing about this kind of stuff, I think it helps. Like people find out like, oh my gosh, there's stuff you can put on your phone that'll describe an image to you. Or
yeah, oh my gosh, and hopefully this conversation will help others. It's
crazy. It's just what's out there. Oh man. Anyway, I'm a huge nerd, so I'm really excited. I want a car that'll drive itself. It is one of these days. I know people are scared, but I'm more scared about the other driver.
Oh my goodness. This exhibit, you say, is a celebration of animals that live in Texas. So I wanted to just, call out the rhino. And how did he make the walls?
He kind of started it. That's where like he was done before it became a Texas sort of. But I love the idea of urban and animals, and I was playing around with the idea. And so to describe the painting, it's 3 feet by 3 feet with a kind of a white background, but it's a rhinoceros, but he has graffiti all over him. So it's like he's been tagged all over him. And I just love the idea of he's bold, he's strong, he's confident. Like you see that and you just think all these positive attributes. But you don't think wild. You don't think, nature really. Like when you think about urban landscapes and them both together. And then I just love the way that they played together. And And that's kind of what got me thinking. And then when we talked about the show, and I thought, oh man, taking the rhino and doing a Texas show would be amazing.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, except the rhino's not from Texas.
I'm so glad he made the series.
Me too.
He belongs on the wall.
Yeah, maybe there's a rhino that lives in the San Antonio Zoo. I don't know.
There is.
So
there's a few actually. Hey,
so maybe that's.
Yeah, maybe those will be the ones that need to buy that. What is one of your favorite paintings from the exhibit, and why?
Oh man, I like Unexpected Company, which is a bear in a camper, because as a childhood we spent a lot of time camping. We never found a bear, thank goodness. But I just love the juxtaposition of him coming in. He's eating all your stuff, but he's not.
So comfortable.
Yeah, he's just there hanging out, and he's definitely not an aggressive bear. And he's kind of chubby. He's kind of like me. It's not his first picnic, so he's been around a little bit, and I just love the idea of the wildness of it. And there's another one called Prowl, which it's almost an older style, but I was thinking about 6th Street in Austin, and how Austin's changed a little bit. Like, I love Austin. It's changed a little bit. And sometimes, like, I don't know, in some of those streets, it used to feel very warm and friendly. And now it almost feels like it's wild, like it is wild, like it's nature. So I thought putting a wolf out there would be nice. And I remember as a child hearing wolves a little bit before they were rounded up, but in the 80s, something like that. I don't know. I can't remember the last one.
Well, I love that one. And one of the other ones I love is Neon Rents.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's a jackrabbit. Yes. And it's sitting in a laundromat. And what I love about it is it's got this like very retro vibe to it. How did you come up with that scene?
Oh man, we spent a lot of time in laundromats when I was a kid. Like, we'd camping, and we'd go out to the lake every weekend, and it always smelled so much like soap. And it was just, they always seemed dirty to have so much soap in the place. They always seemed so slightly grungy, and and the lights would flicker at night, and you'd have moths flying everywhere, and it seemed like every laundromat was the same laundromat. Like they're all the same. They just copy and pasted them everywhere. And the idea of a jackrabbit, which I love rabbits, and I usually think of rabbits being these little cuddly creatures, but a jackrabbit is definitely has that wild look about it. So it's definitely in it's not somebody's pet. It's out from the wild, and I don't know. For some reason, when I think of that image, it just makes me smile. It makes me laugh a little, and
totally.
It's
one of my favorites.
Oh well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I love to put myself in that space and think about what the sounds would be like, the hums from the machine, and the warmth, and the light, and all the smells that are around there, and what it would feel like, and to walk outside, and it would probably be a little bit cooler, and then that rabbit coming in and just warming up a little bit. And
I love that.
I don't know.
I love that. Another piece I think is really great is Truck Tunes. It's a little different than the other ones in that the main subject is a cowgirl sitting on the back of a truck. But if you look closely,
yeah,
she has a little friend right next to her listening to her sing, and that's a red cardinal. And I love that piece. What made you come up with that idea?
Thank you so much for liking it. And so much of the series is so focused on animals, and that I wanted to have at least one piece that focused on people. And I can't play the guitar. I play the ukulele a little bit, because no one's ever going to ask you to play the ukulele, but a guitar, every once in a while. But I noticed I have a lot of friends that play instruments, and it's interesting hearing them on stage somewhere, and then hearing them like around a campfire, or hearing them just playing for themselves on a porch. And it's so soulful, and it's so meaningful, and it just becomes a part of the landscape around them. And then I love cardinals, and they're musical, and so I love the idea of them just sharing a moment out with both of them, just having a moment in nature, just kind of hanging out, and
maybe taking a break and
let
someone else sing.
Yeah, and of course the old trucks. Everything's got to be vintage.
It's so great. I love it. I thought as a final question to help wrap up this conversation is to really almost just pass the mic over to you and just allow you to give a message of hope, to people that, are listening that might be having a hard time finding their place in this world. I think that you're a great example of getting through the pain and living a beautiful life on the other side. And your artwork represents that with all the color and all the detail and the texture. And I'd like to have you help us wrap up this conversation. Whatever's on your heart that you'd like to wrap up with.
Thank you so much for the kind words. By the way, I mean it. I appreciate that so much. And one of the things I think I've learned a little bit is from the people around me, because I know I completely gave up on myself whenever all this happened. Like, I would love to be able to say that I had all this courage or strength and all this ability to be able to get through it all on my own. And I didn't. There was people that believed in me and hardcore believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And so, and being able to say, help, it was really hard for me. Mm-hmm. And I think understanding that everybody goes through something, and it's okay to have bad days, and it's okay not to be all together all the time. Mm-hmm. And then, because you do go through it. And for me, it was the people and it was the artwork, and thank goodness. And I want to thank you so much. And it's funny, you say this is our third show, and it's incredible. Like, I haven't written really anything since Shouting in the Dark. I write poetry that I do of poetry nights and stuff. But I'm writing a new book that The Wild Familiar has inspired me to write that. So I'm almost done with it. And
gosh, that's so exciting.
But I wanted to thank you, because it's like, well, I don't know, everything's kind of coming full circle for me in a way in that. So it's been a beautiful thing, and sitting here chatting with you has just been wonderful and so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.